And welcome back to Lycan Studios. Hopefully you guys are all having a fantastic day. So it's been a long time since I've uploaded. I've pretty much been lazy on YouTube, but active in life. I've been doing all kinds of stuff. I just got back from the Penn State game yesterday. My voice is a little gone, but nonetheless, hopefully you guys enjoy episode 6. Let's jump right into it. So the opening scene begins in Cersei's chambers. Jaime is still clutching her lifeless body in his arms. There are tears in his eyes and on his cheeks. He continues to hold her and look at her. He gives her another kiss on the forehead and carries her body to the bed. Daylight is beginning to break through some of the clouds as a light flurry of snow begins to fall. Jaime wipes the tears off of his cheeks and out of his eyes and then begins to make his way outside. When Jaime exits the room, he looks at Qyburn's dead body lying on the floor in a pool of blood. As he steps around the corner, he is startled by what he sees next. Euron Greyjoy is gone. Jaime knocked out his teeth with his golden hand and drove Bronn's dagger into his chest. He left him to die, but he is not there. There are a few teeth and a small pool of blood, and the dagger is there too. Someone must have taken his body for some reason, or, God forbid, he is still alive and has escaped into the city. As more and more light comes through the clouds, everyone can see how much destruction was caused from last night. King's Landing looks like a smoking ruins. Everything is burnt black with smoke rising from piles of rubble all over the city. There are multiple fires burning still from the dragons and wildfire. Almost all of the Lannister men are dead, but some of them chose to lay down their arms in the face of the dragons. All of the survivors are looking around in disbelief. They never expected the capital to look like this. The Hound walks back up to the top of the wall to see his brother. Some of the wildfire is still burning around the Mountain's body. Most of his armor is melted into the stone. There is nothing left of the enormous man that was once known as the Mountain that rides. No one knew about the amount of wildfire Qyburn had stashed down in the cells. Because it was so far below the ground, the dragon fire that torched most of the buildings was never able to reach it and set it all off. Dany and Jon walk up to the doors of the throne room. Dany enters while Jon looks on from the door. Dany is finally looking at the Iron Throne she so desperately tried to win back for her family's name. Now the Iron Throne resides in a city that is completely destroyed. Dany walks up to the throne and looks at it for several minutes, but she loses all interest to take a seat and walks back over to the doors. When Dany exits the throne room, Jon asks her what she plans on doing with it now. Dany says she wants it burned. Melt the chair down. King's Landing will no longer be the capital of Westeros. Dany says she wanted to break the will entirely. We have all sacrificed too much for us to allow the vicious cycle to continue. We can't have one person ruling all 7 kingdoms while sitting on the Iron Throne. Jon has a few pots of wildfire brought back into the throne room. They melt it down to the ground, into a puddle of liquid iron. Everyone gathers back outside, and they decide they will travel back to the Trident first. They lost a lot of good men and friends on the battlefield. They want to give them a proper burial. They load everyone up on the dragons, and they head for the Trident. When they get there, it looks even worse than when they left it. Tens of thousands of bodies are lying in the dirt and snow. They begin walking through all of the dead bodies, looking for loved ones or close friends. They come across Varys and Kinvara's dead bodies first. Both of them have been burnt alive during the battle, most likely from Viserion, or so they hope. Dany wants Varys taken with them. He stayed loyal until the very end. They also find Jorah Mormont and Beric Dondarrion's bodies next to each other. Dany begins to cry when she sees her closest and oldest friend laying dead in the snow. Jorah had died while he stopped a White Walker from throwing an ice spear at Dany and Drogon. Dany says Jorah should be returned to Bear Island to be with his family. They also discover Grey Worm and Tormund. They died during the attack on Winterfell, but were turned into whites and were among the rest of the Night King's army. Their eyes are no longer blue. They carry their bodies over to the rest until they can decide on how they will lay them to rest. As they are walking across the battlefield, everyone stops when they hear the wolves howling in a distance. Arya turns around and looks off into the tree line. There is a massive pack of wolves watching them all. After a few moments, Nymeria walks to the front of her pack. Arya and Nymeria look at each other, then Nymeria howls and the rest of her pack begins to howl with her. Arya smiles as the pack disappears again amongst the trees. This makes Jon think of Ghost. He hasn't seen him since the Night King attacked Winterfell. Jon tells everyone to start to load up so they can head north. Some of them volunteer to take the bodies back to the ships Theon had, and the others board the dragons to fly back to Winterfell. After the dragons take off from the Trident, the screen will go black for several moments. When the next scene begins, they will be in Winterfell. Several months have passed since the last scene. Winterfell is still in very bad shape. The Godswood was mostly destroyed. The castle was burnt. The walls are badly damaged and crumbling in several areas. It will take a very long time to rebuild most of the 7 kingdoms. Dany is now visibly pregnant by this time. She is actually ready to give birth any day now. Jon and Dany have a long talk about how they want to handle things moving forward. They hold a meeting in the hall and allow everyone to voice their opinions on how the 7 kingdoms should be ran in the future. They take a vote and decide that each kingdom should be independent with its own council to rule over certain territories. There will no longer be one king or queen ruling the kingdoms, nor will there be one person overseeing their own piece of the kingdoms. They take another vote and decide that Dany and Jon should oversee everything together until Westeros is stable again. Kingdoms and castles need rebuilt. New crops need to be put in place for harvest, and they will need to vote on who will stand in as the first set of counselors over each kingdom after they are restored. Gendry is legitimized as a Baratheon in order to protect one of the major houses of Westeros. They offer him his family's former seat, and they will help him vote on a set of people to oversee that area with him. Gendry says he will stay in Winterfell first until the North is restored again. Jaime and Tyrion are offered their family's seat at Casterly Rock under the same terms, and both of them also volunteer to stay and help restore the other kingdoms before they leave. Jon tells his family that once Winterfell is restored, he will be leaving and heading south with Dany. They are going to raise their child together on Dragonstone. He also tells them that he wants to marry Dany before she gives birth to their child. Jon wants Sansa, Arya, and Bran to stay in Winterfell together. He wants the Starks to be in Winterfell. Jon and Dany will wed in the Godswood in a few days. Even though the Heart Tree is destroyed, Dany says she wouldn't mind a traditional northern marriage. Jon will go down into Winterfell's crypts to see his mother and Ned. When he is down there, he will be reunited with Ghost. His direwolf had fled the castle after everyone escaped, but came back to the empty castle and stayed in the crypts until they returned. This will be very emotional for Jon. He will be looking at Lyanna's statue as his mother for the first time, and he will reunite with Ghost. Sansa and Brienne will have a discussion about Brienne's duties, but Sansa will relieve her of her vows. She then tells Brienne that she is free to go home if she would like. Brienne says if Jaime is staying, she will as well. Brienne and Jaime both offer their swords to Sansa. Jaime says ice should have never been melted down into Lannister swords. He gave his to Brienne so she could find you and your sister to keep you safe. He says he has the other one and he is no longer a competent swordsman anyways. The swords belong in the north with the Starks. Sansa tells them both to hold on to them while they help. Bran starts to get very sick. He is no longer having any visions, and ever since the Night King was defeated, he hasn't felt well. He gets very weak and seldom leaves his room. Now that Bran Stark has served his purpose, his powers are starting to fade away, weakening his entire body. It will be very similar to what happens to Jojen in Season 4. Theon and Yara decide to go back to the Iron Islands. Ever since Jaime said Euron's body was missing from the Red Keep, they fear he could show up again and start trouble. He is a dangerous man, even wounded and without men or a fleet. Theon and Yara set sail to the Iron Islands with the remaining men. Sam and Gilly are also set to wed. Sam also wants to give little Sam his last name. Dany and Jon tell them that they can return to Horn Hill, but they both volunteer to stay and help restore the kingdoms. The Hound also decides to stay in Winterfell for the time being. In one of the last scenes, Dany goes into labor. Sam and Gilly both assist her, and she gives birth to twins. One boy with dark hair like Jon's, and one girl with silver hair like Dany's. Both babies are given the Targaryen name. After Dany recovers from childbirth and is able to leave, they will go back to Dragonstone to raise their children. The last scene will show the last hearth and the car hold being built. Winterfell will almost be restored. Most of the snow is melted away in the far north, and there will be people tending to their crops and people building farms where they will keep different animals. The fishing villages are lively again, with different types of fish getting packed into barrels of snow and ice. The people of Westeros are trying to build a more civilized place to live, but will it last for long? Find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. So yeah, this pretty much wraps up this fake plot leak. This is not a real plot leak. I don't care how many people have said that they think it's going to be real or that it's definitely going to happen, and look at season 7 because not everything is mentioned in the plot leak that happens, but it's right. No, this is fake. Nobody was working on the set and just happened to glance down at this and write a few things about it, which is what the guy said. There's no way. Some things may happen, but that's just because people are getting pretty good and narrowing down, what could possibly happen. So some of the things may come true, but it's not going to be because it's a plot leak. It's bullshit, and I'm tired of hearing it. I'm just kind of letting you guys know how I feel. Anyways, we'll start the breakdown if you guys want me to for episode 1 pretty soon. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It's still entertaining. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely entertaining, but for those of you who buy into YouTubers clickbaiting into saying that this is a plot leak and it's true, and it's just bullshit.